Hey everybody, welcome to Triangle Be Well TV, the Tribe of Well. I'm your host, Howard Jacobson, FUD. No, my middle name isn't Elmer, just PhD. And I'm in the studio today with Amnon Nissan. Hello, Amnon.
Hello.
So we were talking politics, but we're not going to talk
No, we're
politics
not.
anymore. Because that's
Chag
just
Sameach.
Chag Sameach. Which, is there another one?
Well, this is the last day of
Oh, the Shmini Atzeret?
Yeah.
The Hoshana Rabbah?
Simchat Torah.
Okay, that's a good one. Yeah, so we rejoice in receiving the law. So today maybe we'll talk about the natural law, about how things work. So what I wanted to talk about today was inspired by a book that I have almost finished. It's called Persuasion by Robert Cialdini. And persuasion, of course, is a portmanteau of before, and persuasion. So it's how you persuade people or yourself by framing the message. So instead of focusing on let's persuade someone through getting the message right, you can persuade somebody by making sure they're in a good frame to receive the message. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But what I really thought about, I would talk about today is 4 different, calling them mind hacks. And I'm not crazy about the whole hack mentality and the hack culture. You know, hacks originally were from computer science, right? So what's a hack? What was the original meaning?
Is to get into a program or into a computer in a way that was not meant to, I guess. In a roundabout way.
Okay, so
Covertly.
covertly. So there's a little emphasis on you're doing something that the creator of the program or the hardware wasn't intending to be done, right?
Right, and to fix it. Not it wasn't done in order to hurt like today.
When people are doing it today, it was actually to fix something.
Okay, so to fix it, to make it better,
Yeah,
to squash the
right.
bugs, you'd go in sort of
Yeah.
behind the scenes. You wouldn't go through the front door. You'd find some other way in, and
And
then
you
you
fix
could
it.
you fix it.
Yeah.
And so now there's a whole hacking culture, right? And you know, let's say the white hats, the people who are still trying to do the fixing, not the people who are trying to,
To do,
you
yeah,
know,
not the black hat.
not the
Right.
black hats or the viruses or the people who are just
Yeah.
trying to make money or screw up the world. But there's still sort of a hacking culture of kind of like do it yourself and throw away the manual, right? Because the manual just has what the product marketer wants you to know about it, but there's a lot of stuff in that you can do that's not in the manual. So then we got this idea of life hacking. Right, and you've seen those. If you have a Facebook feed, I'm sure people have posted all these different life hacks, like 21 different things you can do with duct tape, or how to fix the wires behind, you know, the nest of wires behind your computer. And so hacking moved out of the realm of computers and into the realm of life. How can I use things that, in a way that wasn't intended, you know, like using clothespins and hangers, or you know, how to open a can with a rock and a match, all this stuff. I don't know if that's actually possible. I made that one up.
I was looking up what's hack actually.
Oh, okay. What you got?
I've got 4 things. Hack in computer security is to break into computers and computer networks. Hack in programming language is a programming language developed by Facebook. That's a late thing.
Uh-huh.
Hack in computer science is an intelligent. There is no word intelligent, right? Or is that a word? Intelligent but effective. I think it's a typo.
Uh-huh.
Intelligent but
Or
effective solution.
inelegant.
Okay, inelegant. So it's inelegant but effective solution to a computing problem. And hacking programmer subculture is participation in a computer programmer subculture.
Okay.
So there are different ways. And now you're adding another one.
Right. So the idea of hack is that in a lot of ways it's sort of a shortcut, and it's sort of inelegant, but it gets you there, but not in the way that sort of the system was intended to get you there. So a lot of people have gotten into what's called biohacking, where they're now going to look at our biological systems the same way you'd look at a computer's hardware and software. And so it's kind of a form, like, you can second guess Apple or IBM or Microsoft or Nokia. But to second guess the human body takes a certain kind of attitude. Say that we can, that the way things are supposed to run, we can make them run better by shortcuts. So there's danger there. There's danger in, for example, basically medical science is one giant hack, right? So somebody will say, well, look, these people have high cholesterol, and they seem to be more susceptible to heart disease. They seem to get it harder, stronger, younger. It does more damage, and so this cholesterol thing appears to be related to heart disease. So if you were not going to hack it, you'd say, well, what is the origin of the high cholesterol, and what can we do to fix it? But if you were going to hack it, you'd say, hey, let's just sneak in there and have an inelegant solution that's going to bring down the cholesterol. And there you have statins. You have these drugs that are designed to work on certain limited biochemical pathways to reduce the amount of a single nutrient, a single substance in the body, cholesterol. Well, that's a hack, right? And so if someone has their cholesterol fixed through the application of statins, their risk for a coronary event goes down from 3% to about 2%, which is of course, a 35% decrease, but actually it's a 1% decrease in real terms. So then the person might need another hack. They might need a stent, this metal meshed balloon that goes in to open up as many of the arteries as you can find that have the blockages. And when that fails and you need your bypass surgery, is the most inelegant hack of all. They're going to cut open your leg, take some venous material and sew it in to replace an artery in your heart after cracking your chest open. And so, so we're familiar with hacks. We don't label them as such when they're done by the mainstream. Just like, how can you tell the difference between a freedom fighter and a terrorist? Well, the freedom fighter's on your side, right? How do you tell the difference between a religion and a cult? Well, you belong to the religion, right? So in a lot of ways, it's semantic, whether something is a hack or just business as usual. But what I want to talk about today I'm going to call them mind hacks, because they're based on a kind of a sophisticated modern understanding of how our brains work, how our mind work, how our thinking works. And they're based sort of on this principle of fake it till you make it. Right? You've heard that, right?
Yeah.
So, it's usually like fake it, like fool other people, like apply for a job that you're not qualified for and pretend to be qualified for it until you actually figure out what you're doing.
Really?
There you go. You got to warn me, man. I know I'm the talent and all, but I'm not that professional.
Oh, you're fine.
So totally lost my train of thought. Let's rewind. Really? So
There's the train.
fake it till you make it. Right? So
Yeah, a lot of people do that.
yeah, and there's a good amount of social science behind it, and it works in certain cases more than others. Like fake it till you make it as the junior accountant is probably better than fake it till you make it as the
Brain surgeon.
The brain surgeon, right? Just what I was thinking. But in fact, everybody has to be in a position at some point where they're going to need the space to fail. They're going to need, you can't make mistakes unless you can't be good at something unless you've already made the mistakes and you know how to fix them or get out of them or avoid them the next time. So, my friend Sean D'Souza of psychotactics.com talks about the importance of the flight simulator. Like, before the flight simulator, pilots flew, and when they made a mistake and they went into tailspins or they arced up too high or whatever, were you you were in the Air Force, right?
No, I wasn't involved here in any of that.
No.
But yeah, that's how it was. You couldn't just press a button.
Right. So
Okay, let's start again.
Yeah, so now, no, game over. Oh, I've got 5
Yeah.
lives left. That's the provenance of the simulator. So we all have to fake it till we make it at some point in our lives, or as executive coach Marshall Goldsmith says, fake it till you become it, which is I think even better for this case. So I'm going to talk about 4 different mind hacks, and the first one comes straight out of Persuasion, and it is the attention mind hack. So attention is a funny thing. It's kind of the currency of our world today. You think about it in business, right? The thing that the currency, the most valuable, most universal currency is always going to be the thing that everybody needs that is in shortest supply. So that's why air isn't a currency yet, right? It is on Everest, right? If you
Or
have
in space.
or space, so you have oxygen canisters, but here, air, right? We've got plenty of air. Water used to not be a currency. Now I'm sure it is in Flint and lots of other places. But attention is arguably the most potent currency in the world today. Right? You think about how advertisers and businesses are competing for our attention, and how our attention is being drawn to Angry Birds and Candy Crush and what did Kim Kardashian wear this week, and being fractured into a million different pieces. And you walk around outside and you see everyone's attention is captured by their devices. And there's so much screaming to get our attention that only when someone has our attention can then they persuade us to their point of view, to buy their product, to try their service, to vote for their candidate. Without attention, the world falls apart. So what's the attention hack? It goes like this. What do we pay attention to? Let's say in the wild, in a sort of normal environment that's not sort of crazy commercialized. What do we pay attention to?
We have to pay attention to something that may pose a danger.
Yes, that's the top one.
Yeah.
So any potential threat. So we run a program in our brain 24/7 called "Is Anything About to Eat Me?" Right? And so I could be here in the studio with the lights and the fans and a very nice man here pushing all the buttons and the levers and pushing a button that says "really" every so often. And still part of my brain is always on the alert for something that might eat me or kill me or hurt me, or the whole continuum, right? From because our brains don't really distinguish between threats too well. So like the threat of the saber-toothed tiger like ripping my throat out in my brain gets processed in the same area as the critical email from a client, right? They're both perceived as threats, because what our brain can do, of course, is say critical email from a client's going to fire me, I'm going to lose the money, I'm not going to get another client, I'm going to lose my house, my family's going to leave me, I'm going to end up dying in a gutter, right? So they both lead to death. One of them just takes longer and requires more convoluted revolutions of my brain. But attention goes to the potential for threat, and where else does it go? What else do we normally pay attention to in our environment?
Ourselves, others.
Okay, ourselves. Anything that we think is relevant to us.
Okay.
Right. So we're very self-centric in our attention. So if you're walking down the street and somebody calls Rudolph, you don't turn around.
Right.
But if someone says Amnon, you turn around. Right. There are these catbirds in New Jersey, and their cry is something like "Howie, Howie." And they used to be at these tall trees near where I used to play tennis in the morning, and I get ready to throw Howie. What? Can't tell you how many points I lost those freaking birds. But after a while, of course, they stopped getting my attention. Why?
Because you knew what it was.
Because I had habituated to it,
Yeah.
which leads to the third element of attention. We pay attention to things that are novel. things that are different, things that are new. Right? So whatever you see all the time turns into background. It fades because our brains go, okay, like even if it looks terrifying, after a certain amount of time, our brain, okay, we attain steady state, and we're constantly looking for threat, and whatever is in the environment now, steady state doesn't appear to be a threat. Now I'm going to keep watching out of the corner of my eye in case you jump up and reach over the desk and try to attack me and stab me with something. But basically, I'm looking for novelty at this point. So I'm looking for change. So I'm looking for the delta force in my environment, the change force, whatever is different than it was a moment before. So the other main category of thing I'm looking for is things that will help me survive in a positive way. So I want to survive by not dying, but I also want to survive by eating, by getting shelter, by reproducing so that my genes can survive past me. So these are the basic categories of things we're looking for, and that will command our attention in an environment. Now, TV and video producers and editors understand this because, look at this show. It's long form. I don't have a guest. You haven't cut to any other segments. So I have to be very, very animated for someone to sit here and watch me for an hour. If I just sat and didn't move and didn't gesticulate and talked in the same tone of voice, even if it was a really fast and exciting tone of voice or an extremely authoritative tone of voice, whatever it is, if I don't modulate and create newness, then people are going to tune out. And if you watch any sort of TV show or commercial or movie, you'll see, and compare it to one from 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 50 years ago, you'll see how much faster the cuts are. So every time you cut, your brain goes, oh, new situation, gotta pay attention here. Have you ever walked from one room to another only to forget why you walked into that room? And you have to walk back out to where you were before you remember why you did it? So that's not just creeping senility.
Yeah, that's
right?
the door. What did they call it? Syndrome?
Yeah, it's the doorway syndrome. It's the when you cross a threshold, you've now entered a new place, and your brain resets. It says, "Now I'm in a new room. What's happening in this new room?" So
you need to have an apartment that's just one big room.
Right.
There are no doors, no nothing.
Nothing. Yeah. Then you don't have to worry about it unless you have to go out for something.
Yeah.
Then
you forget what you went out for.
Then make a list. Right. So, which reminds me of the joke about it's a Jewish joke, so I'll play this. So the old Jewish man is telling his friend about these pills he got for his memory. Improves his memory so much. So friend says, "Wow, who gave them to you?" And he says, "Oh, it was Doctor." He says, "Wait a minute.
Yep.
What's the name of the flower with the thorns?" And the guy says, "Rose." He says, "That's it. Rose. What was the name of my doctor?" So that was a little interlude, something new to help keep your attention. So here we go. Attention is the most valuable resource that most of us possess. Everybody wants it, and we have trouble hanging on to it in the same way that someone would go, if I gave you $100 and you were a compulsive spender, it'd be gone before you had bought the things you need. We're compulsive wasters of our attention, right? I'm just going, the phone is, every time the phone buzzes, I got to go and run to it, and we're multitasking. So we've got this attention. It's very valuable. Most of us waste most of it, and our brains are exquisitely tuned to newness, self-interest, and survival. So knowing that, here's what we find out. Whatever we pay attention to things that are important to us, right? So broadly defined, all those categories, things that are important to us, we pay attention to. And here's the hack. If we pay attention to it, we then start to think it's important. Does that make sense?
Say it again.
If we pay attention to it, then we start to attribute importance to it. We start to think it's important
Okay, thank
because we're paying attention to it. So it's actually backwards. That's why it's a hack. The real way it's supposed to work is our brains are sort of, our attention is free floating, and whatever is most important to us captures it at that moment. But if someone knows how to grab your attention, however they do it, so you've seen, the old ads that had, the newspaper ads that had, that have the word sex in giant red letters at the top, and then it says, "Now that we've gotten your attention, let us
Yeah.
sell you a ballpoint pen or something." So if something gets your attention, we create attribution, and we say, because I'm paying attention to that, it must be important.
And is this done just to justify to ourselves? To feel good about it?
Well, it's an explanation.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well-
it makes us, we like to think that we are rational and that we do things for rational reasons. So if we do something for an irrational reason, we justify it with rationality. So I didn't buy that car because it makes me think of,
My youth.
well, that's much cleaner than what I was thinking.
Okay.
Of
Susie.
certain affectional favors of,
It's not
Sen-
because of the back seat that I bought it.
Miss Playboy 1986
Yeah.
from, sophomore year of college. No, it's because it's aerodynamically designed to have good gas mileage and will last a long time. And hey, the red shows up easily in a fog, right? So we will justify our decisions with.
I'm buying
with
Playboy
intellect.
for the articles.
Right for
Yeah.
for the writing, absolutely.
Yeah, for the writing.
I have a friend who writes for Playboy. He's actually quite good. Hey, David. So, for whatever reason, we can be fooled into thinking something is important by virtue of the fact that we pay attention to it. So, here's an example. And so what Cialdini talks about is what he called privileged moments. When our attention is up for grabs, if you can get it in a certain way, you can convince somebody of your point of view. And so what we're really trying to do when we convince people is we're not trying to change their minds, but we're trying to get them to focus on a particular slice of reality.
And it works.
It does work. So, for example, here's a study that was done. It was people are on the street in a city shopping area, and they're trying to get people to come over and give them their email address. So I want you to give me your email address, and I'm going to email you a digital coupon for this new kind of soda. Right? What are the chances that you see a table of people who, out of the blue, complete strangers who call to you and ask you for your email address? What are the chances that you are going to say yes?
Zilch.
Zilch, right? So here, scary fact number one: what percentage of people do you think actually gave their email
high.
addresses? It's 33%.
Yeah.
So that's 33% more than should have, but it's still low in terms of marketing return on investment. So they did one thing. They started with 7 words before asking the person to come over and give them their email. And those 7 words were: this person's walking by, say, "Excuse me, sir, do you consider yourself to be an adventuresome person?" And
Everybody would want to say yeah.
everybody wants to say yes. Now, why do they want to say yes? Because when you ask that question, everybody goes back to the file cabinet of their brain and they go, "Am I adventuresome?" And they look for evidence that they are adventuresome. Yeah, there was that roller coaster I went on, and I remember when I asked Susie out, and she, and I was scared, but I did it anyway, and they'll come up with it. Now, suppose I had asked a totally different question. Suppose I said, "Excuse me, sir, do you consider yourself to be a cautious person?" And you'd say, probably yes. I always checked the parachute before I jumped,
All right.
right? I wore a rubber. You know, I mean, whatever. Even the same situations. You know,
You just
you look for where you were
Yeah.
cautious in them. So whether someone's cautious or adventuresome, whether they're stubborn or flexible, we can find evidence for all of it. So the question is, you know, what slice of reality or do we want the person to look at? So in this case, when I want you to think of yourself as an adventuresome person. And so they said, nearly everybody said, yes, I do consider myself adventuresome. Then, would you like to try a brand new soft drink? If you give me your email, I'll give you a coupon. More than double, 76% said yes. Just by bringing their attention to the fact that they consider themselves to be adventuresome. Here's another one. A study, people had to fill out a survey. I don't remember what it was about. But again, excuse me, sir, could you take 10 minutes and fill out this survey?
no.
No. How about, so what percentage of people said yes? 29%.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, I mean, maybe Susie was asking. You know, it's really cute. So 29% said yes. So that's our baseline of people who will do a favor for somebody else just if you ask them to. Now, excuse me, sir, do you consider yourself a helpful person?
Yes.
Yes. Would you mind taking 10 minutes to help us fill out a survey? 77%.
See, that won't work on me, but I guess I mean this is scientific, so
Yeah, and again, it was
I won't
77.
argue that.
It was 77%. So there were
Yeah.
23% of people it did not
Yeah.
work on. So we're only talking about moving.
right.
But you know, if you moved it from 29 to 31%, like every marketing executive in the country would be salivating over this.
Sure.
If you could, you know, add 2 response points. But here, so because somebody drew your attention to it with a question, helpfulness or adventuresomeness became your most salient characteristic. It became the thing about yourself which was most important. Not because it necessarily was most important, but because someone else drew your attention to it. So, and the same thing happens with, for example, palm readers. You know, if you can be, if there are psychic palm readers out there, there may be, I do not know, or you know, whatever crystal ball, but one,
Woo woo.
ooh, yeah, I'm not saying
Yeah.
it's right or it's not.
Right.
I'm open-minded about stuff, but you can fake it by saying things that are vague enough that people see it in themselves. So if I look at, you know, if I read the crystal ball of this big, you know, fluffy microphone foam head, and I say, I see here that you sometimes put others ahead of yourself.
Sure.
And you know, and then the more I riff on that, you're gonna, oh my gosh, that's so true. It's so amazing, because saying the thing draws your attention to it, and not only that, it becomes the most important thing about you. So there's a great story in Persuasion about this woman who, for the Queen of England's Jubilee, the 50th year celebration, she had these, you know, the Queen would have these little line, you know, they'd go to different places and people would line up to kind of shake hands and have an audience with the Queen for 5 seconds. And the Queen's still coming through the line, and there's this woman waiting, and just as the Queen gets to her, her cell phone rings. And the woman freezes, and the Queen takes her hand, looks at her, and says, "You should get that, dear. It might be somebody important." Right. So,
Yep.
so now I'm not a monarchist, so I don't really,
Yeah.
you know, care
Yeah.
about the Queen. But in the circumstance, can you imagine anyone more important than the Queen? Like, who should she pick up the phone for and say, you know, excuse me, you know,
Queenie.
your Majesty,
Yeah.
I've got to take this. Like, there'd be a very small percentage of calls for,
Right.
and yet there it is ringing in her pocket, and the noise itself conveys importance because it drew her attention to it, and it drew the Queen's attention to it. So the Queen says, "Oh, this might be more important than your once in a lifetime chance." So so
I can see a fish school. I mean, fish are sitting now somewhere and doing a podcast, and you ask fish, "Hey, would you like to bite that worm on a hook?" How many
Yeah.
would do it?
yeah, do you consider yourself to be a hungry fish?
Right. You know, how many would do it? But if you add something that spins and get their attention. Oh yeah.
Right.
So yeah, that's. And if we turn the TV on, they already know that they have our attention.
Right.
Right.
Right. We turn it on, and
That's it.
I remember the announcer would say, you're watching, the Yankees Red Sox game on ABC TV, and my father would say, "How do they know that?" Right. So there's a hack in it. This isn't just useful stories and ways to get people to give you their email address and fill out surveys. How can we use this on ourselves? First of all, by knowing about it.
Use it ourselves or use it on ourselves. What did you
On
say?
ourselves.
Okay.
Use it on. I mean, we can do it with other people as well, but
Yeah.
I'm talking about like as a mind hack where I can go into my own
Mind.
mental apparatus, my own psychology, and use this information. So the first thing is to understand that the world is trying to use it on me. That everyone is trying to get my attention, and they're trying to put it on something. And so, so I can give you some more examples of this. There was a website that was set up as an experiment to be like an online furniture store. They would sell mattresses, they'd sell couches, and so let's say a mattress. You can either have cheap or really comfortable. So those are kind of the two main attributes of a mattress that people would think about. And they wanted to see if people go, like, which one would they think is more important? So one of the page that they would land on for this mattress had the picture of the mattress, and the background was fluffy clouds. The other group of people got to see a picture of the mattress surrounded by a background of green dollar signs. And they found that, then they asked people, like, what are you shopping for? What's more important to you, comfort or value? And the people who saw the clouds said comfort, and the people who saw the dollar signs said value. So just to be aware, and people go, well, that would never happen to me. I'm too smart for that. Bullshit. It's a hardwired program in our brain. Saying you're too smart is like saying, well, I know all the reasons for everything I do and think. Right? It's, you're
That would be nice.
yeah, you're in the bottle, buddy. You can't read the label. Right? It's impossible for us to know, but we can understand this general principle. When a Nobel Prize-winning economist, who's actually a behavioral psychologist, Daniel Kahneman, was asked if there was one scientific truth that the whole world could learn, and if they knew it, the world would be a better place. People would benefit from this. What would it be? And he said, "Nothing in life is as important as you think it is while you are thinking about it." So, let's say you're sitting here and you're doing a TV show, and suddenly you think about like a chocolate chip cookie. And now that just mentioning it makes that chocolate chip cookie, I paid attention to it, must be important. And you start thinking, I need a chocolate chip cookie now, instead of a momentary glitch put an image in my mind, and what I need to do is replace that as quickly as possible with a beautiful bowl of salad, or even better, with a microphone in front of me. Like, oh look, here I am in the studio. Let me get back to what I'm doing. And we can't stop images and thoughts from entering our heads.
That's probably where I was going to say something. I forgot. Nah, must have not been important.
Wasn't important.
Yeah.
Right. It was Susie's phone number. Forgot. So,
We need Kirby here.
yeah, we need someone to help us behave. So understanding that, I think there's two important points here. One
So
is
you're talking about getting your attention away from what you were just thinking
Yeah.
and to replace it with something else so you don't crave that.
Right. So there's two important things here. One is to understand that just because it popped in your head doesn't make it important. Because by default, if it's in my head, it must be important. So, so then I'm susceptible to Cinnabon at the mall, to popcorn at the movie theater, anything that can assault my senses. Right? To some extent, I have control over what I see. I get to close my eyes if I don't want to see something, right? If I don't want to hear something,
smell it.
it's harder. I get the blah, 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 blah. If I don't want to smell it, I've got and feel it. Or so we have limited control, but we have no control over our own thoughts, right? Just try to sit down and meditate for 8 seconds, and here's the challenge. All I want you to do is breathe in and out. Focus on the breath at the tip of your nostril. As you breathe in, it's a little cool. Breathe out, it's a little warm. And just count to 10. 1 on the in-breath, 2 on the out-breath, 3 on the in-breath, 4 on the out-breath, and don't have another thought. That's all you got to do. So if you're watching this live, wait a bit. If you're watching it on YouTube or on nissancommunications.com/archive.php, pause it and try it. And tell me, and by the way, if you find a thought coming in, then it's fine. Just go back to 1 and start again. Right?
I'll stay here till tomorrow.
Some of us will stay here till tomorrow. Some of us, okay, so there's 3 ways of doing this that will likely happen to you. One is you'll count, you'll get 4, 5, and you'll catch yourself having a thought. Like, oh, all right, start again with 1. And that'll happen over and over again.
Right.
The second thing is you'll start counting 4, 5, and like 20 minutes later, you'll remember that you were doing this thing.
Well.
6, oh, back to 1. The third, and this is my default, is I will find myself like 20 minutes later, 138, 139, 104. Oh, I was only supposed to go to 10. Right? So I've completely checked out. So the 2 important things here is, one is to be aware that when you are thinking about something, it doesn't mean it's important. It doesn't mean you need to be thinking about it. In the ancestral environment where we're out on the savannas of Africa, yeah, whatever you pay attention to is probably damn important. But in our artificial, manufactured, commercialized society where everything is trying to compete for our attention, and the lion and the giraffe and the reeds blowing and the wind and the rain, they don't have an agenda for our attention. They're not going to make money from our attention. So when you're in an artificial environment, realize that what you pay attention to is not probably that important. The second point is, because we're so vulnerable to our own wandering thoughts, that it's a pretty good idea to learn a mental discipline that allows us to get some control over them. So meditation, I'm looking at you, where meditation is simply focused attention. It can be very esoteric. You can have, bowls and incense and particular postures and movements and mantras and pictures of gurus. But in the end, even if it's just sitting down to dinner and paying attention to the food you're eating, or when you're going for a run, not listening to music or books on tape, but just paying attention to your body and a few points of generative focus around, as my shoulders dropped, is my head up, is there a distance between my belly button and my sternum, are my hands relaxed, is my breathing relaxed, and just sort of cycling through that with, and then of course, you do that for 15 seconds, and then I'm thinking about what I'm going to say on the Tribe of Well TV show today, and who I need to call, and I forgot to send out that email, and 3 miles later, my shoulders are like practically earmuffs. And oh yeah, right. So then I pay attention to it because it is important. All right, because it's hurting.
Mm.
So that's the attention hack, is essentially, and there's a third part, which is then if you want something to be important, pay attention to it. All right, this is no, to
If you want something to be important, pay attention to it.
yeah. If you want, if something is important to you,
Oh, okay.
better said that way. If something is important to you, then pay attention to it. Right, which is like things are important to us, but we take them for granted.
Family,
Yeah, family, health,
health.
right? The stuff we say is important.
Absolutely.
Right? If it's important to you, you pay attention to it. And if you don't pay attention to it, your brain is going, well, it's not that important.
And you go and you do the bad things.
So
True.
so that's hack number one, attention. I have 15 minutes left. Maybe I could just keep riffing on this and we could do a 4 series
It's just meditate.
on attention. Let's have 15 minutes of meditation. I'm sure people will crash YouTube, will break the internet. Jacobson's in lotus position. That's like the equivalent of a denial of service attack on Instagram. Okay, so let's just continue with this stuff. I'm on the so
That's important. I mean, when you think about it, to you, for you, it may just be another chapter or something else to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
But when I sit here and I think about it, it brings up things that you say, wow,
like
yeah.
like what?
I don't want to get into it.
I thought I could coast for the next 15 minutes.
No, we can't. Then we're going to have to start talking politics.
Oh.
Because I see how things can be manipulated. And it's amazing. And obviously, you don't have monopoly on this, explaining this, because this is human behavior and stuff like that. You just know about it.
Right.
Sitting here and thinking about it, I said, wow, yeah, you can very easy make people think that this is important and this is not important and get them to think about it. And
Yeah.
we need to pay attention. I mean, it's redundant, but we really need to pay attention. And
To where we pay attention.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about one more thing. So we just talked so far about getting attention, right? The initial moment of getting someone to focus their attention on something. But when we have a message to deliver, whether to ourselves or others, we also want to maintain attention. That's harder,
Right. Yeah.
right? Because
Not to lose.
because you can get someone's attention by being the bright, shiny object, but then you're vulnerable to somebody else's brighter, shinier object, right? So all of us, I think it was the movie Up, the
I did not see that.
Pixar movie. There's a dog that is one of the characters, and its tagline is "Squirrel," and then whatever in the middle of anything, "Squirrel," and runs and chases the squirrel, right? So that's how we are. So again, I don't want to. I used to be a marketer, right? And I used to teach people how to do this, but right now I'm talking about like us for ourselves, on ourselves, to ourselves. So how do we maintain some degree of attention? So one thing I learned from this book is, I do a lot of writing, and writing is hard. And I try to avoid writing, and I try to set up my schedule so that I don't never have to write. And when I sit down to write, I can, do email and answer forum posts and check Facebook and check the latest 538 results. But I'm not going to talk about politics. And the trick for keeping attention on the writing is finish a writing session in the middle of a sentence. Even if you know what the end of the sentence is going to be, stop in the middle, because then what you've created in your brain is an open loop. And open loops command attention. Have you seen the movie Citizen Kane?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, years ago. But what do you remember about it?
Nothing.
Remember the last scene? The mystery in the heart of the movie? On his deathbed,
Yeah.
he says a single word,
Something rose.
Rosebud.
Rosebud.
Right.
Yeah.
And so this investigative journalist wants to know what's Rosebud. You know, this guy who
Oh yeah.
and he follows us through his entire life. And you desperate as you're watching that movie, you are so curious. What is Rosebud? And you see every scene that comes up, is this the scene that's going to be Rosebud? And finally, at the end, remember what Rosebud is?
I don't remember.
It was a sled, like one that, like you know, like a flexible flyer sled that you ride down a hill in the snow, because like it was when he was 10 years old, and it was the only time in his life that he was happy. And so you look, you know, so it's beautifully ironic. I should have said spoiler, but the movie came out in like the 30s. If you haven't
Yeah.
seen it, it's not my damn fault.
Right.
You've had time.
So is this the same idea as a cliffhanger? Kind of like
Yeah.
you leave something. and-
Right. Right. But leaving it unfinished draws attention to it and keeps the attention on it. So if I just said, Rosebud is a sled, I walked up to you out of the blue and said, Rosebud is a sled, you'd be like,
Huh?
I couldn't care less. What are you talking? There's no, but because of the setup of the movie, that moment is one of the most powerful moments in cinematic history. And so it becomes not a statement, but a reveal. It's part of a mystery.
Okay, so how does that help us?
How does that help us?
By leaving things in the middle, kind of, when you write.
So, for example, if I'm reading a book on health, on something that I want to do, or on anything I want to
Anything.
improve. So don't just read through passively eating the food. Stop when you read a sentence and say to yourself every so often, if it's a really, you know, sort of compelling, interesting sentence, and what that might mean is, and then follow it out yourself and say, well, if that's true, like if I say, like what you just asked, like how does that help us? Okay, I could tell you 7 different ways that could help you, but what if I threw it back to you and said, how does it help us? Now your brain is
Racing.
spinning with it. So you know physics?
So,
Okay. So a lot of people take physics in high school, and most of them hate it. It's kind of boring.
yeah.
So, you know, then the lecturer will teach them something, and then they'll have a test on it, and then they'll forget it really quickly. So let me give you a physics problem.
Oh boy.
Things expand when heated. Typically, it's a property of most materials. So let's say you have a piece of metal, say the size of an iPad. If you heat it, it will expand according to the laws of physics. Now pretend you have a circle cut out in the middle of it. So it's an iPad with a.
Is the hole going to be
with a-
smaller?
If you heat it, will the hole get bigger or smaller? Right.
That's a good point.
It's a good question, right?
Yeah.
So there's a professor at MIT who's the top-ranked instructor at MIT. And the way he teaches classes is he teaches something. So he'll teach something about metals expand, and then he'll give you a problem like this. And he'll say, you know, you have, with a clicker, you can answer three possibilities. The hole will get smaller, the hole will stay the same, the hole will get bigger. And everybody votes. And he looks and he sees, okay, and what he wants is for about 60 to 70% of the people to have the right answer. But when everybody will vote, and you'll see it, and you'll say, okay, everybody find someone who disagrees with you and try
discuss.
and try to convince each other for 2 minutes. And then he'll say, okay, and then he'll say, okay, everybody vote again. And most of the time, the correct answer gets now 70, 80, 90%. And so he hasn't told them the answer, but people have started to figure it out for themselves. Now, here's the interesting thing. I don't care about physics. I wasn't watching this YouTube video by this lecture this guy gave to learn about physics. I was watching it to learn about teaching. But I became absolutely obsessed
with
the
physics.
question of whether because it had been implanted in my brain. Now, if you have a great teacher who can do that, who can create mysteries for you,
That's a teacher. Yeah.
right? If you read, if you read a book and it just gives you all the facts, if you read a book and it says, "Here's the question, here's the mystery," and let's go into exploring how the mystery came about, what we see, and let's look at different explanations and try to come to the truth. That's very compelling, but you don't always get that from the world. People just want to tell you the truth. So do it for yourself. If you start learning something or reading something, create mysteries. And you can create a mystery by stopping anywhere and then wondering, what does that mean? What happens next? What do you think the significance of that is? Why was that even in there? What would disprove it? And you can create, it's called the Zeigarnik effect, after this, I think Russian or Lithuanian researcher named Edna Zeigarnik, who like this, the unfinished principle. The things are unfinished. Hold your attention better. So you watch the Super Bowl?
Mm-mm.
They have, famous ads
Yeah.
for the Super Bowl. And there are, how many are there at a Super Bowl? Maybe 30 different ads. A couple of them will repeat, but mostly, let's say 30 different ads. So which ones will you remember?
Funny ones, probably.
So science says you'll remember 3 types of ads. You'll remember the first one you see, right? The primacy effect. And this is true across the board. If I give you a list of 10 words or 10 names or 10 cities in Jordan, you'll remember the first one. You'll also likely remember the last one, because that's the recency effect. It's the most recent one. It's like it kicks other things out. Like our memories, are these full shelves.
Stack.
So if I want to stick something new in, I got to throw out, Jonathan's 6th birthday party. Bye. Get milk. Okay. Plant-based, of course. Squirrel. Really?
Oh, we didn't hear it.
Oh, okay. Yep, totally slipped my mind again. Those noises are like the other room effect.
So
to me.
yeah, so we throw you
Right, so
remember
primacy,
the last one, the first
recency,
one?
and unusual. So if something really stands out. So if I give you a list of, bread, eggs, milk, carrots, circus clown, toilet paper, right? Circus clown. You'll remember
Right.
for a long time because it stands out. The other thing you will remember, and this doesn't work for words, but it works for ads, is unfinished ads. So they showed people a whole bunch of ads. The one you think the one they saw all the way through was the one they'd remember. No, the one that got cut off in the middle is the one that people remembered, because then their brains had to fill in the gaps. So it's the difference between being passive and being active. When you're actively constructing knowledge, and there's a whole school of education, the constructivist school, that says, like, the problem with rote learning is not just that it's boring and it turns people into sheeple who just want to know the answer and don't want to think for themselves. It's not even very good for getting people to learn the information. That if you want someone to learn, they have to meet you halfway. They have to construct the knowledge themselves rather than just being given it. So you are in charge of your own education. So you can choose to be constructivist. And so another really cool example of this is, so here's a study. You're a woman, this time a college-aged woman.
Yeah.
And you're asked to rate the attractiveness of a bunch of men and you see their Facebook profile pictures. Okay? Now, there's 3 groups of men. One group has supposedly, and they've, there's 3 groups. There's a group, they've all rated you already. So they've rated your attractiveness. Now, there was a group that rated you as not particularly attractive. There was a group that rated you as very attractive, and there was a group that we don't yet know. They submitted it, but the computer hasn't processed it. So they're just in the middle. Which group do you think, on average, was rated most attractive by the college-aged woman? The group that found her not attractive, the group that found her extremely attractive, or the group that she didn't know?
Well, I'm still trying to figure out if the hole gets bigger or smaller. But
Yeah.
but were you taking us back to politics? The undecided.
The undecided. Right, or the unknown. Because
Yeah.
it was unknown, she put more attention on it.
Sure.
And when you put more attention on it, you tend to rank it more favorably. So you think, okay, like why would you rank them as more attractive just because you pay more attention to them? It's because you pay more attention to them. You think, well, gee, why am I paying more attention to them? It's not because I don't know, because that would be irrational. It's because they must be more attractive. So the attention, just like that chocolate chip cookie, the more attention you give to it, the more you think you like it. So
Yeah.
we'll stop here for today.
I think
So
the hole
now-
gets bigger.
You think the hole gets bigger?
Yep. Because the metal cannot, even though it expands, it cannot push it in because it has to go out. It has to expand. And even when you look at the hole and you say, yeah, but it expands, so it pushes it this way and that way because it's expand. But the only way that I'll know for sure is by trying it.
You have to try it. So,
I have to try it.
So to cut out something just as big as your wrist, heat it, and if
No.
if you bleed,
I remember in elementary school, probably 6th or 7th grade, we sat down and there was a board with 2 nails on it that was just the size of a shilling, which was like 5 cents.
okay,
And we would take that shilling and we would heat it up and put it up there, and it will not go through anymore between the two nails.
see that?
And it expanded.
All right. Well, now you got to do
So
it with
I
with one of those
Then you
coins
put
with
it
a hole
in
in
water and you
a
put it in
token.
and shoop, it falls right through. So yeah,
Ah.
I need to try.
Yeah. So one of the
Interesting.
when I was a teacher, I took a course on teaching environmental science from a fantastic educator, and I think his name is Paul Stetzer. I think he was at Germantown Friends School. So Paul, if you're watching this, and that is in fact your name, it was awesome. And he told us like lots of tricks for getting kids' attention in class. And one of them, my favorite, he says, class comes in, they sit down, you start talking about something, and then somebody rushes into the room, some like a secretary from the office with a giant, beautifully wrapped box with a bow on it and puts it down on your desk, and they walk out, and you completely say, thank you, and you completely ignore it. And you keep talking about the thing, and you watch the kids get more and more antsy, like, open it, what's in it, what's in it, what's in it? Whatever is in it will have their full attention because of this attention principle. So he used to do it, he'd have like these big magnifying glasses and trays, and they would go out and identify, what he called the munch line, which is evidence of eating, bugs eating, leaves and rotting things. And like, if you just said, okay, today we're going to look at eating in nature, somebody would have been excited about it. But because it's pre-framed, they were persuaded by having it put, because what do you associate with a gift wrap box?
Gifts.
Beautiful, yeah,
Beautiful things,
things,
yeah.
nice things.
Yeah.
So by doing that pre-association, and there's one for everybody.
It's that big, yeah.
He created things. So you can do it for other people, but do it for yourself. Knowing that even if you know it, that's the hack. Even if you know that you're doing it for a hack, your brain doesn't care, because this is hardwired. This is hardwired attentional strategies that have kept us alive and have kept our ancestors alive until this very moment, Jehechianu. So so that was my 4 mind hacks. Today was attention. Come back next time and learn what the others are. See what I did there? And as always, be well, my friends.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. Our weekly lineup of call-in programs includes Computers 2K Now with Amnon Nissan, My Life, My Will with Gisela DiCarlo, The Tanya Love Show, Health Then with Debbie Bruck, Breaking Free with Marilyn Shannon, Triangle Be Well with Howard Jacobson, Lunch and Learn with Rabbi Yisrael Cutler, Lessons of Vietnam with NCVVI members, Current Affairs with Amnon Nissan. And if you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section on nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by Atomos.com, makers of quality video recorders and converters, CarolinaApparel.com, and DeltaForce.net.